Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mike Rosehart Show, live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. So today, I didn't have a video topic. And so I just made one up. And I thought, you know what I've been feeling lately? I've been feeling like retiring again. And I've talked about this a lot on my channel before, and I'll probably talk about it a million times in the future. I go through these waves. Those who know me know I go through these waves where I get this desire to grow and to build, and I'm of basically two minds, right? On one side, I love to grow and to build, and on the other side, I just love spending time with family. I love um, just the finer things in life. Like when you're really trying to enjoy the journey, you're sitting there thinking to yourself, what are the things that are important? And it's like family, it's those friendships and relationships that matter the most. And part of it is just not having a high level of stress. But if you have no stress, then you have like boredom, right? So you don't want like full retirement lifestyle where you have nothing to do. You want to retire to something. But at the same time, more recently, I've been working with my mentees, helping them close a bunch of deals right now, and even taking on a few deals of my own, just because I have a salary and it's easy for me to qualify for mortgages right now. So I figured, might as well take down a few more deals, and that's like the ambitious growth side of me. But yeah, I'm in this mood lately where I think I'm going to go through another retirement. And so I'm looking forward to that a lot. Um, I was recently in Florida, and I've been to Florida several times, but I was recently in Florida again, and just thinking back to how happy I was during those times, how great it was hunting for deals, how great it was just going around and enjoying the weather, enjoying like the pool, getting up and having like a miracle morning. I just want to have that again. So that's just me just making my daily vlog. I like to start my Wise Well show with the vlog. If you guys have any questions, throw them in the comments. Let me see if the comments are working. Rob, hey, how you doing, Rob? D How To, checking in. Hey, good to see you as well. Welcome on the stream. Good to see a lot of the same familiar faces. I know it'll take a few seconds here to get the stream out there, so that's typically why I just ramble on for the first few minutes. And for those who are watching the replay, smash the like button, and yeah, I'll see you in the comments. But okay, I see a question from William. William, good to see you on as well. Mike, wanted to ask why you house hack rather than having a smaller house and a rental unit? It's a great question. Ellie, good to see you on. Anthony, good to see you on. A lot of the regulars popping on. So it's a great question. And I'm going to also get to remind you later, guys, about investing in Florida, because I think there's a lot of opportunity near Disney there. And just in Florida in general, there's a ton of rental opportunity as far as like cash flow is concerned. It's a very promising market. And I think with a lot of what's been happening with the COVID, outbreak, there's definitely some opportunity down there. We're seeing a lot of foreclosures. We're seeing a lot of market dips as far as pricing is concerned. I don't know what the bottom is, but I'm seeing this momentum right now where we're seeing some opportunities where the price hasn't dropped a ton, but there's a lot less competition. And so if you're willing to jump in there and someone's been, last 60 days had no Airbnb activity and they've just been carrying this property, they might want to back out, right? Or they might just be scared of the news about the COVID outbreak, right? And as soon as there's certainty, right? As soon as the governments are like, hey, everything's reopened and we're all good to go, that's when the discount for COVID disappears. So it might be a good time to invest now. When people are all back to work and there's certainty, most of the money, right, is still there. People still have a lot of wealth. It's just without certain times, people don't want to throw their money. They just want to throw their money at something they don't know. They aren't sure, right? So even myself, I found myself wondering, when will the governor of Florida, release the Airbnb restrictions? When will, here in Canada, here in Ontario, when will they release the restrictions right now? Airbnb is not allowed unless it's a short-term rental, is not allowed unless it's an essential, something related to COVID, right? Providing someone like housing that they need during this time, or medical support, frontline worker, something like that. But you're not allowed to take a traveler in right now, and so that's definitely dampened things in a big way, right? And so I think that's important to consider, right? Is that there's a COVID discount, so to speak. And I don't know, long term, there's going to be some economic ramifications of this, and I think a lot of that's already pricing in. I feel like in times of uncertainty like we have here, where there's actual fiat currency destabilization risk, where there's monetary policy issues, where they're basically printing too much money, right? What do people flock to? They flock to tangible stores of value. And by that I mean gold, silver, land, real estate. They flock to solid, tangible assets, right? So I think real estate, it has a play. And I don't think it's going anywhere. So those people who jump on my channel are like, real estate's going down, like you're screwed. Maybe commercial real estate. Okay, I could see the argument there where businesses could go bankrupt short term and until new businesses come in to fill that space, or maybe it's a trend towards online. You heard me talk in the last couple streams about the move towards people working from home, people selling things online. Commercial retail space is dying. Industrial, office space, people need less of that. So that sector of real estate will, I think, not do as well. But what will happen is there'll be a depression in value in commercial real estate. There'll be a reduction in cash flow, which again and vacancy rates will rise, which again will affect the net operating income, which in turn will affect the cap rate, which in turn will affect the value of the property. But at a certain point, these motels that are going down, or these commercial properties that are going down that are tied right now heavily to the they're commercial in nature, right? They're going to be repurposed for residential, would be my guess. So there's a play right there that you could take advantage of in the coming months. I think on the residential side, it's not really, like, COVID hasn't actually killed a lot of people off. I know people are like, oh, it's so terrible, but like, and it is, by the way, obviously there's a couple strains and it's, a terrible thing. There is a bit of a reaction, I think, from an economic perspective. I think people are over discounting how much this has affected our population, and it has had major effects. I'm not going to pretend that it hasn't, but let's be clear here. Pneumonia and a few other illnesses combined have had the same damage every single year, but we never shut anything down for it. Like thousands a week were dying from pneumonia last year during the flu season. Thousands per week in the United States, tens of thousands in the world. But we weren't like tens of thousands died of pneumonia, shut everything down. No, we were just, people who got pneumonia, they died. And, our hospitals did the best they could to handle it. And obviously it's more intense right now, and the slowdown of the economic shutdown has slowed the spread of it and this and that. But I think that the major percentage of the population hasn't actually been affected beyond like maybe a little bit of a job disruption or something to that effect. But like health-wise, it's not actually killing that many people. So we still need places to house everyone, which means residential real estate. And by the way, all new house builds are on hold. All new starts for housing, so people wanting to build, on hold. Cities can be backed up 6 months in most municipalities. There's a full stop on construction. So every year there's tens, hundreds of thousands of new units that are added to the supply to handle immigration, to handle the increase in population, et cetera, and so forth, right? People are living longer and more people are coming into the country. So we're just having an increase in population, especially in places like Canada and the United States. There's going to be a shortage of residential housing coming out of this boom. We know that. So residential housing is going to be in a higher demand than ever, because guess what? You wanted to buy a new build, you can't now. You have to go into the residential market and go into the resale market. So I still believe strongly in the fundamentals of residential real estate. I think it's going to be just fine. We might see a short-term dip, but long-term, I truly do believe real estate does this, right? The trend for people living, having somewhere to live, maybe commercial real estate, long-term, I could see it. But I do think that this is, and we'll get into some of the stats that I've seen, like, you've seen some of the stats on the antibody tests, and they actually err on the side of caution, right? So they'd rather have a false negative than a false positive, right? So these tests basically are saying in some places 5% in California of people had the antibodies. It means 5% of people had COVID. And like, again, in New York, they had a study that was 1 in 5 have been infected with a COVID strain. 20% of the population has it. That means the death rate is less than the common flu. Full stop. If those antibodies, and we know the antibodies are linked to someone being exposed to COVID. So if they did more testing on that, we actually knew how many people had it, because we have no idea how many people actually had it, right? I know people that have had it who were exposed directly with someone who had COVID and they didn't report. They didn't get a test. They just stayed home. They quarantined. They were sick for a couple days and they recovered. Those people are not part of the statistics. We don't actually know how many people had COVID. We know how many people are hospitalized. We know that for sure hospitals here, I know in the publicly funded sector like Canada, if you label a death certificate as COVID, or someone ends up on a ventilator with COVID as opposed to something else, they get more funding from the insurance company and from the government. So I'm not trying to be like a conspiracy person, but like from an economic business perspective, if I was running a hospital, I would label as many death certificates COVID as I could because it paid more money. So there are mislabeled death certificates, fact, like that's happening. And people are dying of it who are high risk, fact. Mostly healthy people don't die. There's a small percentage that do. But if 20% of the population, or even 5% of the population had it, The death rate is less than 1%. Common flu, death rate 1%. So something to think about here, if that many people actually do have it, this might have been a major overreaction. This does spread a lot easier than the common cold, right? Like I think something like 10% of people get the common cold every year, something like that. And if 20% of people have gotten COVID, then it's twice as contagious as a normal common cold. And it might be more severe. I think in some of the symptoms, I think are a bit more severe. But it's not killing more people than the common cold, if that data is correct. If we actually knew how many people actually got COVID, the top line, which we don't. All we know is how many people are dying from it. Again, that number might be skewed, we don't know. But we know for sure people are dying from it. We know how many. We know when people died of pneumonia last year. I just saw a comment come up with the vaccine. I'm sort of in the middle. I think that like, you know, it's one of those things where, and yeah, Marco, I have to look at the statistics. I haven't pulled out the data, I don't know. But I remember seeing some articles like if 20% of the population has had it, and we've had like, how much a percentage of the population, like in New York State, there's what, like 30 million people, 35 million people? And if 20% of them had it, millions of people had COVID. And we've had like a few thousand, like 10,000 deaths or something in New York State. I don't know, check the facts. But it's a very low percentage of people that are actually dying. A lot of people are getting affected, and that's something to consider here. Oh, thank you for the hug. Mom doesn't want you on camera, okay?
No,
I love you.
I gave you a hug.
No, I appreciate that hug. That meant a lot. Thank you, Emma.
No, I gave you a hug.
Oh, I appreciate that. My daughter's the sweetest. She'll just come in and give me a hug. Like, how blessed am I? Seriously, how blessed are we? And I'm not saying don't do social distancing. I'm saying obviously like wash your hands and, you know, mask and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's a bit of an overreaction. And I think that, anyway. Let's get through some of these questions here because I promised I'd answer William's question. I just sort of got on a tangent here. And I will circle back to the Florida stuff too. Mike, wanted to ask you why you house hack rather than having a smaller house and a rental unit. So yeah, there's lots of ways to house hack. I'm of the opinion that, and so there's no right way. Everyone has a different way that they sort of, they want to live, right, at the end of the day. I like the idea of being able to live for free. And I like the idea of I'm in a neighborhood where the average house price on my street is like 800,000 Canadian-ish, give or take. That puts us, like I'm in the top 10 to 15% of neighborhoods in London. And I want to be in the top 10% because here in Ontario, you go to the school, like the schools are actually divided up based on where you live. So you can't go to the best schools unless you live in the best neighborhoods. It's just messed up. So like the poor kids, they all go to the same school. You can't go to that school unless you live in that school district. So it's a lot of publicly funded schools here. But anyway, we want to move into one of the best neighborhoods. So we want to get a nice, we got one of the smaller houses, to be honest. My house appraised at like 830 something. It's worth about 850 grand, my house. And I couldn't live in an $850,000 house and have one rental unit offset that. But I was able to buy this house and have a 4-bed, 3-bath, effectively lower unit that was already in this place. I just spruced it up. There was like an office or whatever that I put a closet in. So there's, I guess we kind of added a fourth, but it's set up so that I can bring in like 2,500 to 3,000 a month for my lower, and it's completely soundproofed. And I live upstairs in my 4-bed, 3-bath of my bungalow, and I have like this backyard. I have this great neighborhood. I have great neighbors. They're all well-to-do. I get to live for free. And so that's what made sense for us. You could instead live in my area. You could buy a $350,000 house or a $300,000 house and have a rental unit that you owned as well. And the rental unit cash flow would offset your living expenses and you wouldn't have to house hack. You wouldn't have to share it all. That is a version of house hack. And I've said, like, some of my mentees have the same thing. They have bachelor apartments that they could live in, but they prefer to rent that bachelor for $1,200 and then live with me for like 600 or 500, right? And they actually are making more by not living in their own property. They rented their bachelor out and then moved in with me. They were actually saving money. So they're house hacking effectively, right? And a lot of, it depends how you look at it. It depends on the frame of mind. But yeah, I mean, we've considered that as well, where, you know, it could make a lot of sense for us to, oh, here comes the dog. That's okay. He's gonna look at some squirrels and he's gonna go wild, so not a big deal. But look at Giannis, one of the mentees there. He's just playing in front of the mirror. Everyone's watching you, buddy. Have a little dance.
Come on, boy.
That's my other daughter. She's sweet. She shouldn't be on camera though, remember? Yeah. Whatever. It's all good. Okay, let's go back to the next question here. I think I answered your question, William. If I missed something, jump in the comments again and answer your thoughts on that. But my overall thoughts are basically that, like, choose the lifestyle that works for you. If you don't want a house hack, if you don't want to, soundproof and live in a duplex, cool. You could just build a guest house or a lane house and then have a detached house hack, so to speak. House hack is just the idea that you rent portions of the house that you aren't going to use out. I barely use the basements anyway. In every house I've ever lived, I barely use the basement. This is a walkout basement, so like, again, space that we don't even need. We're just renting out because it's wasted space for us. We don't need it's a 4,400 square foot house with both levels. So 4,400, I don't need 4,400 square feet. I have a gym down there. I have so much stuff I can't even use all the square footage. So for me, it makes sense to rent it out. Now, some people might live in an abundance mindset. They might say, hey, I'd rather just work harder. I'd rather just buy another rental property and it'll cover it. That's their choice, and teach their own. There's no wrong way to do it. I'd rather have the rental income and have the house hack, and so that's for me. Maybe someday it just won't make sense anymore to house hack. And I went down that line of thought and been like, geez, some days it's really annoying having, effectively roommates, right? Or like, well, you saw Jonas there. He's the godfather to my daughter, right? So we're basically family. No matter where I go, he's coming with me. But you could imagine if I had a new mentee move in and I didn't know them very well and they weren't like family to me, it would be awkward if they came in, to my unit, or even just having them share the driveway and never have to run into them. That might be an inconvenience. And at a certain net worth, like my net worth, say, you could imagine $10 million or something like that. Then a $10 million net worth invested at 12% is like a hypothetical $1.2 million a year, $100,000 a month. With that kind of money coming in, it doesn't make sense to house hack because you're that wealthy. It just doesn't, like, your privacy then becomes that valuable, and your time just having to deal with and manage people living in your house becomes not worth it. So it depends on where you are in your fire journey. I think when you get to the Lux fire, you either end up in a mansion house hacking, or you just live in like a house that's simple for yourself and you don't have to house hack anymore. When you have that much income coming in. But if you're at a stage in your journey where you're wanting to quit your job and you can't quit or haven't, you're not quite there yet, adding a rental unit to your property and having a roommate, or not a roommate, but like a unit that is adjacent to you, right? So you're not really roommates. You have your own spaces, you're locked off. They don't come into your unit. You can have separately contained units and soundproofed. But that inconvenience is probably not as bad as going to a job every morning and waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning and sitting in rush hour and then driving all the way back home. It's probably better, I would say, to have a unit you rent out than have to work. But if it comes down to like, you have so much money coming in, yeah, like house hacking is, you don't need to do it if you're that wealthy. And so again, it's like on the spectrum, where are you right now? If you're really rich, then yeah, you don't have to house hack. Or if you love your job and you're like, the job isn't a big deal to me, I value, I like getting up in the morning and going to work every day, and I don't care if my boss changes or whatever happens at work, I want to ride that journey, cool, you do you. Like, there's lots of gradients to fire. Financial independence, retiring early, could take you 25 years to achieve, could take you 5 years to achieve it. It's how bad do you want it, and what sacrifices are you willing to make to have that end result, have that end goal. And both ways are okay, both ways are acceptable. Both are fine. For me and my wife, it made a lot of sense for us. Like, she hasn't worked in like 3-4 years now. Myself, 2017, right? Stopped working. So it was early 2017, and I, to be honest, was checked out in 2016. As I was getting my last rental properties, I was barely even, like, I was there, but I was like a vegetable at work doing the minimum I could do in my cubicle. To be honest, if any of my, I have a few friends who used to work with me, and like, that like from November 2016 onwards, I was like doing the bare minimum. I wasn't worried about promotions. I was already manager, wasn't worried at all about that stuff. And so it's, when you get to that point where money doesn't, like the money from your job, you don't need it anymore, it's really hard to get motivated to do work you don't care about, to help, businesses that you, in a sector you don't care about, when all the motivation was money before. And so the only reason I actually stayed on for the additional 5 months was mostly just to help my team finish the projects they were on. So I put in like the minimum amount of work. I took on no extra projects. If people were like, you want to take this on? I'd be like, nope, not raising the hand. Just kind of staying quiet, riding it out. But yeah, like the sacrifice that I made during, we'll call it like 2010 to 2017, that 7-year window, I worked really, really hard because I valued fire. So it took me 7 years to do it. And from 2010 to 2017, people who know me know that I grinded like an animal. I did a full-time job, rental properties in the evening. I was picking up any side hustle I could to make extra money, but mostly it was real estate that I used as a main vehicle, right? To build wealth and to make that extra money and then invest it and save it. But it's up to each person. Like you could, if you love your job, okay, do it another 10 years. Cool. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay. And I know I know two people actually who do like sort of versions of mini retirements. I know one person who's a seasonal worker and they work 6 months on and 6 months off. And here in Canada, if you're a seasonal worker and you're laid off, you actually get unemployment insurance for the 6 months. It's a messed up system. I don't know if I agree with it, but you literally get like 55% of your income for 6 months for free from the government. So if you make 100 grand a year, or if you make say 60 grand a year as a seasonal worker, you work through the season, and then in the 6 months that you're off, you actually get like basically a 30 grand a year salary while you're off. And so even if you didn't save, you could just live on that unemployment money from the government. So that's kind of crazy, actually, that we have that program in Canada. But I know other people who just work and save, and then they work 6 months and they take 6 months off. You can do that now. Like I know a contractor friend of mine, if Tom's ever watching, he does 6 months on, 6 months off. And that's great. I watched him do that for a couple years now, where he'll get a rental property, do a flip, do some, tons of construction work, and he'll get paid for all that work. And then he'll go and, travel to, Brazil or Thailand or wherever he wants to go. And that's a cool version of FIRE too. He's always having to go back to work 6 months and doesn't have that like FIRE, like he's taking a lot longer to get that FIRE portfolio built up because he's not working year round. It might take him 20 years to build up enough that he never has to go back to work. But he's okay saying, hey, I'll take 6 months on, 6 months off. So it's okay if you can find a job, or you could build that job for yourself. That's what he did. He basically is sort of an entrepreneur, and then he does a flip in the on season, and then the off season he just relaxes and lives off the gravy from the flips. Or he sets up a rental property and refinances it and works hard during that time and picks up side jobs, etc. That could be you. You could pick up a job where you did that. You could flip 2 properties and then take 6 months off. I had run before I quit my job. I wrote like lists of things I could do, like how I could cut my expenses or how I could make money. And I remember thinking I could just do one decent flip and make 50 grand, and that 50 grand would cover all of our living expenses, and we still have savings left over. So I was like, worst case scenario, I'll grind it for like 2 months every year and do a flip. That was like, I'd rather do that than go back to work. So I made so many contingency plans. I remember when I quit my job, and I did the intense route and then like full stop, quit my job. Now I've come in and out of retirement. People know that I retire, then I like go back to grinding again because I buy a business, or I get excited about some opportunity and I chase that. And for me, I'm coming out of retirement, but I'm not really working. I'm just doing something I love. It's to the point where like I'll stay up at 2 a.m. doing it because I enjoy it, not because it's not attached to the money for me anymore. It's not attached to, there's no economic reason I'm really doing it other than like the scoreboard of making money is fun. But you get to a point, I think, in your retirement or FIRE journey where you go through waves, and that's kind of where I'm at, where it's not about the money, it's about doing what you love. And so I love the intensity and I love the breaks, and I'm looking to get another break. This summer's gonna be amazing. This quarantine has reminded me how important it is to have family and how important it is to treasure them. And my kids are, like 4 and 1. I gotta spend the time now, while they're this age. So anyway, that was sort of my thought. I'll go back to the Q&A here and we'll hit it up. There's a lot of question and answer here that I gotta hit up. Okay, so the house stacking question, we got that banged out. Okay, so the next person says, I have a question. If you're going to show a house for rent currently based on this pandemic, how would you approach showing the house to a prospective tenant? So what I would do is I would go into the unit and I would get a really good, even just use your iPhone to be honest, and just take a nice slow walkthrough of the entire apartment. Stage it, get it set up nice, clean up everything. If the tenants are living there, get it all set up. But take a slow panoramic around the whole place, like do a video basically, right? So you normally take pictures, you create a listing, etc. But then create a video, upload that video to YouTube on a private link. That's what I usually have the team do. And then when someone says they're ready for a walkthrough, I did this before COVID, by the way, because I think it's a waste of time to do in-person showings. Some of my best tenants came from people moving to the city, or international people coming in, or they're moving from a neighboring town, or they're just working professionals who are too busy to go look at like 10 units. And so they wanted to see a video before they came out. That is actually a good qualifier. The person who's going around like nitpicking everything, even if they're a qualified tenant, you don't really want a tenant like that sometimes because they're so annoying. They'll come at you about everything. Your property manager will get like frustrated. Or if you're your own property management, you'll be like pulling your hair because nothing's ever perfect. No rental property is ever perfect, and people who like to complain will always find something to complain about. But yeah, I would do video tours, and I would say, here's your virtual tour link. Take a look, walk through the whole thing. If you love it and you really need to see it, we can go do a FaceTime or a Skype call, and we can walk around and show you the property that way. Just because of COVID, we can't have in-person walkthroughs. That saves time too, by the way, because you can bang out a bunch of showings really quick. And the nice thing about FaceTime is you can see the tenant, you can get a gut feel, you can talk to them, you can see them. Obviously not as good as seeing them in person. You get a little bit better feel seeing them in person, but it is a way that you can show units out and get them rented. The biggest thing is just checking credit score, checking, proof of income. I like to see bank accounts. I like to see that income going into the bank account to know it's not Photoshopped. I like to see that, when you're looking into a tenant's background, there's tons you can do. Oh, look, Austin's on. How's it going? Tons you can do to background check your tenants. When I do landlord reference checks, for instance, I'll go on, there's an MPAC system you can use here in Ontario that everyone has a roll number they can go sign up for, and they get 100 pings. You can see who owns properties, right? You can go do an inquiry. I do an inquiry and find out who owns the property, and I talk to the landlord. I'm like, hey, what property do you own? When did you buy it? And what's your name on title? And right there, I've found tons of tenants who put fake landlord references. They're friends, and they're like, I don't know, you bought it last year, and you check and you're like, no, this was bought like 5 years ago, and this is the person on title. And you know right away they're a liar. And then you can't trust their landlord reference. So that's something to be careful of. Obviously, a current landlord reference is something to be careful of, because they're probably just trying to get rid of the tenant. In many cases, they might lie and say things that aren't true just to get rid of the tenant if it's a bad tenant. So lots you can do to kind of screen your tenants that way. But there's lots you can do. Virtual tour is definitely the best way to rent out your property. Just take your iPhone or take your new Samsung, whatever phone, and just do a video tour, upload it to YouTube, and say, here's your private virtual tour. And that'll screen out 99% of tenants. Most of the time, you can rent it out just with those videos, especially right now. People don't even want to go and see the unit, and they will sign a lease virtually. I'll have my lease ready to go. I'll send it in a PDF, Adobe sign. They'll sign it back. It's all virtual, and they e-transfer me first and last. So you don't even need, I've had tenants move in, I've never met them before, right? So if you can do all the checks online and the tenant checks out, there's power to you. Especially during COVID, this shouldn't stop you. Should not stop you. Okay, next question. Erica says, Mike, can you talk about how Canadians can utilize OPM for US properties? I've always wanted to invest in Arizona or Florida. Erica, that's awesome. I also love Arizona and Florida, partially because it's a great place to snowbird and it's beautiful weather opposite to Canada. Their winters, or I guess our winter is amazing there. The temperatures are great. So I will be investing in Arizona and Florida. So OPM means other people's money. So how do you leverage other people's money? There's lots of ways to do it. You can invest as a Canadian in Arizona or Florida, and a lot of companies will actually lend you 25% down. They'll lend you the mortgage. So you get the mortgage yourself, you could qualify for it, and you could borrow the money from someone in Canada and then just convert it to USD. So that's one way. The other way is just find someone who has US funds and borrow from them that way. That's another way to use other people's money. You could find a JV partner or a joint venture partner. Say, hey, buddy at work wants to buy a property in Florida. Say, hey, look, I found this great property. I have it under contract. Don't approach someone until you have it under contract. I have it under contract, and just say, look, I got under contract here. This is the deal. This is the numbers. And if they want to partner with you, then they can bring the down payment. There's an example of you could partner up. You could do all the management. You could procure the deal, do all that work, and then they get basically half of the profit with you for bringing the down payment. So it's a great return for them, great return for you. You could also just find a US citizen who would have no problem at all qualifying for mortgages and partner with them that way too. So there's lots of things you can do to joint venture partner. I'm probably missing a dozen other ways you could do it. There are B lenders you could borrow from. You could borrow the whole amount of money. There are tons of investors that I've met out there that have capital who just lend you the capital, and you could buy the properties yourself, or you could give them a percentage of equity in the properties. So there's lots of ways to invest in those markets. Just find someone, become either a professional expert in that market by going there and learning. And ideally the way you do it is you go find 5 experts down there and spend days with them. That's what I did. When I went down, I found the top realtors and the top contractors and walked around with those people and asked them questions and learned. And that's how I started to learn about the market. And so that's something that you should be doing if you want to invest there, right? And so that's part of my plan. I've always wanted to spend 5 months a year in somewhere like Arizona or Florida, and then spend the six months, the rest 6.5 months a year in Canada. And so that's a dream of mine. And if I can have something to do down there, that would be ideal. So for me, I'll probably build, over the next 20 years, I'll probably build a 100 or 200 portfolio property, or 100 to 200 property portfolio in Arizona and Florida, just because I happen to be down there. And that's what I like to do. I like doing business, but I would have it set up so that I've got a management company set up down there. Probably I'll buy into a management company and partner with them in some way, or I'll just outsource and create a contract with them, vet them and find someone great to help manage the properties with me down there. Worst case scenario, I have a pretty good reach actually through Instagram. So I'd put it out on Instagram and I'd find people who are living down there, who are young and hungry, who want to get into real estate and want to learn. They're the perfect type of people to mold, because guess what? Most of the systems that work here in Ontario, as far as placing tenants, as far as like renting out units, as far as managing Airbnb, it's identical. Like all the Airbnbs that I manage here, it's the same thing down there. There's some slight nuances and tweaks and changes, but all the systems that work here with a slight tweak work there too. And you can have properties and manage properties where you're not physically there, especially this day and age with things like FaceTime and videos. Contractors can send you videos of the whole thing, and you can have a second, third party property manager come in and check on the contractors, right? And with my expertise level, I can look from a video and see whether or not things are, moving along track, or et cetera and so forth, right? So, Ali says, I can be molded, help you with what is needed. There you go, Ali. So next time, in the next 60 days, I'll be back down in Florida to check on, we have a mansion down there we're renovating. And I can't go because there's a travel ban, but next time I go down there, we'll have to link up. So send me a message, follow on Instagram at Mike Rosehart, and we'll definitely connect down there. In Central Florida, and like certain pockets, not so near Disney, but if you, if you're away from the main hubbub of like Disney and stuff, there can be like some 2% rural type properties down there. So there's some huge multifamily investment opportunities in Florida. There's been some big, like Ben Mala is a good guy in Florida. What's the other guy's name? Starts with an M too. There's this guy, he's got all these cars. I'm trying to remember his name. Jeez, there's another guy down there. Someone knows his name. He's got like 100 million in portfolio, or like $1 billion portfolio or something. He's huge. Manny or something? I want to say Manny K or something like that. I can't remember his name, but I'm probably butchering it. Maybe it's not Manny K. But this guy, like lots of guys in Florida have risen to like huge portfolios because the market is ripe for investment, for cash flow. And yeah, there it is. Manny Kashiban. That sounds right. That name definitely is the one I'm thinking of. There's others too who have made their mark at Grant Cardone. There's lots who have made their mark in Florida. It's a great state. It has no state tax too. So there's some advantages about Florida that I really like. And Disney's beautiful, and just the weather down there is amazing. I'd just have more fun down there doing deals. Every deal I was doing down there was just like 3 times as much fun as London. I don't know if it's because London's like cold and dreary in the winter, or if it's just because I'm bored. I've done like 70 deals here that like there's just like the next student rental is the same thing. The next sixplex is the same. It isn't as exciting as stuff down there. It was way more exciting. So I don't know. I just found something more exciting about it. And the market here in Ontario is really shifting towards tenant-centric. So the landlord-tenant board is shifting towards tenant-centric. We're looking at 12 to 18 months with COVID back up. I've heard stats, 12 to 18 months to evict a tenant that stopped paying rent in January. So if you're in Ontario and you're a tenant, you can go 18 months not paying rent before you'll be evicted. That's how messed up our system is right now here. Rent control is getting really strong. So this market is just not as favorable as the conditions I'm seeing down there. And the weather's beautiful. Just there's so many things coming together where I think that I'll be retiring as a snowbird at least part of the year down there. London, Ontario, where I live here, I can fly direct. There's flights direct from our airport here right to Orlando in 2 hours. Like I can be in Orlando, Florida in 2 hours. From Canada to Orlando, Florida. So it's a beautiful thing. It really is. I'm excited about it. So yeah. Next question. And I will get all these questions. I'm going to try to get all these questions answered. Do the best of my ability to do that. So after short-term deflation, do you have thoughts on hedging against inflation with the money printing governments are doing? So Liam, it's a great question. We're talking about how the government has been artificially suppressing interest rates and printing money like you wouldn't believe. This is evidenced by, if you look at the real price of things, that remains relatively constant while the fiat currency changes, right? So yes, it's a fact. You go to like websites like Shadow Economics is a great place to check out, where they track a lot of that stuff about the real inflation, because they adjust the CPI, I think it is, Consumer Price Index. They adjust the goods in the basket, right? So there's a lot of manipulation going on to make inflation seem like it's less than it is. But things like real estate, they tend to hold their value. And so because the majority of my wealth is in tangible assets, like I do have a little bit of gold and silver, I'll be honest. I'm a physical gold and silver guy. I'm not a paper gold and silver guy. But I do believe in having a little bit of, some of that stuff. But most of my money is in real estate because it cash flows. Gold doesn't produce cash flow. It sits there and it holds value. It appreciates, slightly above inflation, or at least sort of tracks inflation, maybe a little bit more. In times of recession like now, it'll appreciate faster than inflation, definitely. But what we're seeing is that real estate, by and large, holds its value. There's only so much land. And when they're not making any new buildings because of COVID, there's a complete shutdown as far as new builds go. And we're losing our season, by the way. Here in Canada, here in Ontario, we can only build so many months a year, like what's favorable to build, right? It's really hard to build when it's -20 outside. And we're going to lose the time. Like, this is the time when foundations should be being poured. This is the time when those guys are out there doing 50 foundations in a subdivision all at once. Now everything's set back with these COVID delays. Who knows how long it could go. If we go into July, we could lose half our housing supply that would have been new houses created, here in like London, and Toronto, etc. That's going to create increase in demand, decrease in supply, right? There's going to be demand for existing residential real estate because people can't get the new build they want. And so they're going to have to buy the resale home. That's going to be good for the economy overall. And I think that that's going to be a reason why I'm going to continue to hold my real estate portfolio. You've seen me sell off a few properties on Instagram if you're following. I am looking at, I just sold a triplex the other day. Most of the properties I'm selling right now are strategic in nature. So there's something about the property that didn't make sense. Maybe I had a JV partner who wanted out. And in this case, most of the properties I'm selling are actually that I have a JV partner who's, wants to get their cash out or whatever reason there is. Or we just have a lot of equity in the property and my JV partner can't qualify for the refinance. And so we got 200 grand sitting there, let's say in equity, we got to get that out. So and redeploy it and, buy more properties or whatever. So there's nothing wrong, I think, with wanting to sell some of your portfolio off. If you have a property that you can't refinance, you can't get the equity out, now's a good time maybe to do that. It could be a good time to wait too if you have cash flow. And here's the thing what I'm finding. There's not a lot of supply in the market. Most people aren't listing right now. There's also not as much demand. But interestingly, because there's almost no supply, you might be one of the only triplexes on the market right now. And some investor might be bullish and just pick it up. So we're seeing some weird stuff where some properties are going over asking still in my market, which is wild, right? Like during COVID, there's like 6 offers on a property and it's going multiples. So there's people with equity, there's people with who have refinanced it out, who are ready to buy properties, there's people with cash, and as the certainty levels increase, as people are more certain of the future and realizing that, hey, COVID's not going to wipe us out, we're going to be just fine, the world's going to move on. Now people are going to start buying real estate, right? And so, especially if you had paper stocks, right? If you had like a portfolio of stocks, you might say, geez, like there's been a huge rally here, I made a little bit of money, let's cash out, take that money and put it in something tangible like real estate that provide me cash flow every month that's, tied to something tangible like buildings, right? As opposed to stock in a company that we don't know what's going to happen for some of these businesses, right? So I'm still bullish on real estate. I could see the argument for a slight dip in the short term, but I could see in like 2 years from now, prices being much higher than they are now. So yeah, hope that answers your question. I don't remember what the question was anymore, to be honest with you. I've lost my train of thought on that one, but how do you prepare for, I think it was something to do with inflation, but basically buy real tangible assets. I wouldn't have a lot of money in cash. Now you might have a lot of money in gold or something that holds value for you that you can easily dump, something liquid, right? I would say real estate's not very liquid. It could take a while to sell it, but something you could sell quickly that would hold its value despite currency fluctuations would be a smart play if you're looking to hedge against inflation or even deflation. Next question. Hi Mike, can you talk about some deals that you have available to sell and how an investor from Toronto can get into first investment property? Thanks. So Ruben Siva, yeah, I've got some properties that I would maybe sell. We have a 7-plex here in London that we would maybe sell if we got the right offer. We've got all the rent roll up. It's near, geez, it's got to be near 10,000 a month now, rent roll. And it's got a lot of parking spots. It's a great property right downtown London, prime piece of land. We would sell it almost 1%, like not 1% roll, a little bit less than, but for a multifamily to get that sort of rate, it's very competitive. Like it would go quick, but $1 million, $1.1 million, we would get rid of that guy. It's got a lot of equity in it. We haven't been able to refinance it just for economic reasons. my JV partner and I haven't been able to refinance it. So we've discussed selling it as opposed to, and then buying something else as opposed to trying to go through the refinance process, just because of like certain reasons why we might not be able to qualify right now. The building itself, not bad at all. I got a single family house an investor wants to get rid of. I know of a duplex that is near Oxford, between Fanshawe and Western for like $325. A detached, has a garage. It's a 3 up and 2 down. So that's a pretty good deal. I know some other properties too that are pretty decent deals. So you can hit me up if you're a serious investor and you want to get some information. I'll try to put together some information on the properties that we were looking to kind of sort of cash out on in the next little bit. I cycled through real estate. People know that. My portfolio will be, like, as people ask me how many properties I have, I'm like, geez, I haven't even counted. Like, we're anywhere between like 30 and 60. We'll be flowing through properties. We don't flip, but where it makes sense to, let's say you bought a property for 250,000, renovated it, it's worth 400 now. We might have 100,000 in equity in there that we could redeploy and buy 2 more. So it sometimes makes sense just to sell a property. Someone else can get into it. They can be fully levered on it, so it's a great deal for them. And then we can get out. We've already turned this property around. We've realized its upside. Time to move on to another property to really increase the upside. So there's lots of opportunity to do that. And sometimes, JV partnerships, you want to go your separate ways. There's lots of reasons why you might want to sell property. So I think it's actually smart to look through your portfolio and say, hey, I want to sell this. I want to sell this. Every year I do this. I sit down and say, these are the properties I want to sell for whatever XY reason. Sometimes it's not even financial. Sometimes it's just like me and that JV partner just want to go our separate ways, or I'm just tired of dealing with that tenant at that property. Could be anything, right? Could be something silly as that. Yeah. So definitely hit it up on Instagram, follow along. I'll do the odd post here and there. And I've thrown up a property before and someone bought it right off Instagram and it was gone in like 2 days. So sometimes properties just sell. I make a post and I just sell it that way. So yeah. Do you think that this pandemic in its current state, minus a proven treatment, will hurt the shared economy? Obviously, there is a proven treatment, or you might mean once. I think it's just a typo. Once there's proven treatment, it may change. Yeah, I mean, of course, it's going to have an impact on the economy. Like, we're just not trading like we used to. We're just not conducting business like we used to. There's an economic shutdown in many countries. Now, some countries have just adopted the herd mentality, the herd immunity, I think they're calling it, and they've not shut down. And so it's been a mixed bag of who shuts down and who doesn't, and how they shut down and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's had economic impacts. Are businesses still operating online as best they can? Yeah. Are people still working from home and trying to connect business as best we can? Yeah, I mean, the economy is still moving. It's just not moving at the same pace that it was. So yeah, that has impacts. For sure it does. Is it permanent or long-term? I don't think so. I think it's short-term, and I think we'll recover. I think we might see a quarter where there's like a bunch of negative growth, but I think we're going to look back economically and say this was a one-off. Like, we had like 2 or 3 quarters, maybe it goes for 4 quarters worth of, effects of this, because it's trickle-down economics, right? That basically, when one industry is affected, it'll eventually affect the rest of the industries. So every industry will be affected in some way. Some will be positively, anything medical should be like positively affected by this, but there's definitely some negative, economic ramifications of COVID, and that's okay. That should just mean that when you're buying with a bit of a discount. You're able to now get that property you couldn't get before that meets your numbers now. It might mean that you need to keep more savings for the future, because you might lose your job for 6 months till you can find a new one. So hopefully you were saving for the future, and hopefully now if you weren't, you've changed your mindset, so you are saving for the future. Now you're living on half your income and you're saving the other half and investing it. So you're prepared for this to happen again, or prepared for the next recession that happens. I've always believed that I've been saving for this recession for like 10 years now, right? I've been begging for a 2008 for like 12 years now. It's sort of here. And at first I hated it, but I kind of love it now. I kind of see the opportunity here. And so recessions are hard, but let's remember that most of the biggest wealth jumps happen coming out of a recession. So that's when you have the chance to make the most money. And we've seen this, market's been crazy. There's been like dead cat bounces like crazy. There's been huge recoveries and then, drops again. So I don't know. I'm not a trend analysis guy. I don't believe in that. I believe in like in value investing. And long term, I believe in things like the bank stocks. They'll be just fine here in Canada. They were trading at a huge discount, and it doesn't make any sense because the bank's going to always have margin. When you're thinking about it, you're going to have, there's always going to be opportunity at the end of the day for us to build wealth, and the bank's going to capitalize on that, and they're going to lend to us, right? They're going to take our money, they're going to lend it out, they're going to make a spread. When interest rates drop, they kept their spread. If you watch the bank drop, several times the prime interest rate, the Bank of Canada, a lot of the private banks didn't follow suit. They didn't drop as much as the prime interest rate dropped. You guys saw there was it was like 50 basis point drop. A lot of the banks here in Canada didn't even follow suit. We saw no drop at all. In fact, we saw interest rates rising during this time. So the banks are keeping their spreads. I feel like people are overreacting, as they always do. And so you can take advantage of that. And there's a great saying, I don't know who said it, but buy when everyone else is fearful, buy from those who are afraid. And basically what you want to do is you want to sell to the optimist and buy from the pessimist, right? You want to buy when everyone else is afraid and everyone else is selling. And you want to sell when everyone else is buying. That's why I've been selling all the time, but I was selling a ton when the market was hot in 2019. I was telling people they should be cashing out. If you got equity in your real estate portfolio, say you have a $1.5 million house in Toronto, it doesn't cash flow, and you can't refinance it because you can't qualify for a mortgage that big, it was a great time to sell. It's probably still a great time. We haven't seen that much of a drop yet from a real estate price perspective. Sales volume, yes. Price, pretty much flat. We've not seen a drop at all. The data, you're seeing a lot of websites, like even mainstream articles jumping in there and saying the world, the 60% down, real estate prices 60%, or it says real estate down 60%. And you look at it, it's like the sales volume. Because of COVID, there's not a lot of transactions that are allowed to happen. But the prices are not down. In some cases, they're up. And they don't want to sell more papers. So they want to make it like more doomsday. And for some reason, negative news travels faster and sells more. Just the way it is. Oh, there's a lot of good questions here. Dylan, good to see you on, man. Bump, man, like hearing the excitement in your voice about Florida. Man, I'm excited about life, to be honest. Okay, next question. If they convert all these hotels and motels to residential, won't that increase supply, putting downward pressure on residential units and prices? So Anthony, I think that there will be an equilibrium, right? I don't see that people are going to be converting motels to, there's also zoning changes. This kind of stuff doesn't happen quickly. You've got to remember that it takes time to make these conversions, a long time. And so probably the loss in housing starts will be made up for in conversions. That's the hope, right? And if that doesn't happen, then we're just going to see prices skyrocket. I like to believe in a balanced market where it makes a lot of sense. I think that if that happens and motels do convert, what's going to happen is those people who still have motels and still have Airbnbs, guess what? They're going to do really well when travel resumes because people are still going to travel. People are going to come to the city. There's lots of reasons why it'd be needed once this travel ban is lifted, right? People are going to still come and visit their family and whatever and come to conferences and et cetera and so forth. So I think that no matter how you cut it, if you could hold out through this time, you'll be just fine because a lot of people will lose their shirt. But if you can hold in your hotel or you run an Airbnb property, I got a lot of my properties that are staged up just mint. I don't want to throw a tenant in them because they're perfect. If I throw a long-term tenant in them, it's a waste. I've spent $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 staging this house and staging this property up. So in a lot of ways, even some of my Airbnbs, I've got them discounted right now is what I've done. I've discounted a lot of my Airbnbs and we're just renting them at like normal residential rental market prices. But I'm ready when the Airbnb comes back online and travel comes back online to be getting double market rent again. I haven't just like thrown my thing to a long-term tenant because I want to be ready when things are back online, right? And so that's something to think about. Airbnb provides way better rates of return than long-term rental. So it's more favorable. It's more work, obviously, but if you have a manager in place, it's not so bad. Ultra Dodge says, how old are you today? I get that question a lot. How old do you think I am today? So I'll give you a clue. I was 24 when I retired. Was it 24? Yeah, I was 24 when I think I was 24 when I retired. And, okay, it's been retired for 3 years. So I kind of give it away. I'm 27. If you lift the social distancing, it would be millions of deaths to people. Marco, I don't know if I believe that. And even so, we have to think about, I don't want to get into this on camera, but like, we have to kind of think about what are the ramifications of this economic shutdown? And at what point are the suicides from people who are like losing their job, at what point are all the other negative effects worth more than the risk of someone who's going to die anyway in a year? Because a lot of these people who are dying of COVID would have died anyway from pneumonia or something else, right? So we got to keep that in mind. The media likes to pick up the stories of the healthy people and play those off, but like the majority, the lion's share of people had pre-existing conditions that were like made them huge at risk. And I'm not trying to downplay this at all, but like, I don't know, medically speaking, I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to comment, but it doesn't seem like it's that. Yeah, let's all just practice social distancing. Let's just say that. I think there were better ways they could have reacted. That's my thought. They could have prevented this spread while keeping the economy open by implementing things that other countries did, like forced masks for everyone, like hand washing stations, forced gloves, certain things you can bring in, sanitizing, fogging they could bring into the businesses to stop the spread without shutting down the economy. And it would have been a lot cheaper. So something they could have thought of, they could have done, but whatever. Our government made the choices they did, and they got some more power grabs and passed some more bills to give them long-term more power. Okay. Am I still live? People still hear me? My timer stopped on my timer stopped. I don't know. I think it lagged out. Just lagged out for 5 seconds there. It's my joyful internet. Bell is the worst internet ever. So yeah, I need to get new internet. Obviously, it's pretty terrible. But what are you gonna do? That's if anyone's watching and they know Bell. Bell seems to be the worst. It's time to switch to Rogers. Hi Mike. I asked it last week about Lux London and thought you might suffer from international students. It came 5-year rental guarantee for $21.40 cash flowing at $250 a month. I think it's still safe. I mean, there are hordes of international students that are going back to their home country during this time because they know it's all schools have gone all online for this foreseeable future at like Fanshawe and Western. So, and by the way, $250 a month cash flow guaranteed is not that good for the price of those Lux condos. I will say that. The appreciation should be worse than average London, for sure. And the cash flow is definitely worse than the average in London. So I don't want to like crap on your deal, but there is a lot better you could have got. Again, you should have the best of tenants. And so hopefully you're getting terrible or poor cash flow and poor appreciation because you have a really good quality tenant. And so there's less stress. Or you could have maybe more stressful tenants and, you know, more stressful stuff, but have more cash flow. You got to kind of work the numbers out. But yeah, the Lux is definitely, I'm sure they're not doing well right now. And if they made that guarantee, you're guaranteed the cash flow, that's cool. But look out, because how are they going to make that guarantee when they're sitting empty? Are they going to cover the difference? I don't know. They probably weren't planning for a shutdown for international students. I'm sure that wasn't the game plan. But that's the risk in investing in equities. When I say shared economy, I mean Airbnb. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, Airbnb is definitely, okay, you mean like Uber and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be negatively affected in some ways. I think that definitely people are less likely to get into an Uber. They're less likely to stay in an Airbnb right now, but this is going to pass. And I think that long-term it'll be just fine. We might see Airbnb be used differently. We might see people, you know, doing like a 2 or 3 week, like targeting longer stays, maybe 3 weeks or 4 week stays, as opposed to like a daily stay. But yeah, I think it'll be all right. Honestly, I think long-term people are going to they'll find a way to sanitize the Ubers. Long-term, people aren't going to drive anymore. Cars are going to drive themselves. And so there'll be a fleet of Teslas that drive themselves, or some company like that drive themselves, and we'll just get into the car when we need it. We won't have to pay insurance. We won't have to carry the depreciation costs of a car. That's the worst part of owning a car, is the depreciation. So let them deal with that and keep their cars fully utilized. I know I haven't driven in my car in like, geez, I only drive a couple of times a week in my car. Most people don't drive in their car that often. Most of the time our car is sitting unutilized, depreciating. And so I think that's a trend long-term just in general. All right, let's go on rapid fire mode. Let's go lightning round. Next question. By the way, I love Florida. I used to fly there once or twice a month for the weekend, about 3.5 years straight. That's sweet. Awesome. Hey, Mike, finally caught the live again. Good to see you on How to Save. Jake says, hey, Mike, what are some thoughts of your unique but key clauses you put into a rental agreement? There's a good one you can buy, actually, other than me just like telling you. There's a standard Ontario lease that you have to use by law, but there's an addendum that you can add that like the London Property Management Association has that, what's his name? Harry Fine, he's a paralegal here in Ontario. He has a great one you can buy off him that has all of the clauses in it. Some things I like to do is I put the lawful rent higher than the actual rent, and I give the tenants a discount for things like not smoking, no pets, keeping the unit clean up to my standards, maintenance of the snow or grass, that kind of stuff. You can do an independent contract for the snow and grass if you want and provide a discount. But basically you could just jack the rent up higher than the market rent, get them to agree to it, obviously, and then give them discounts so that if they meet the certain check marks and become good tenants, then they get a decent rent. But if they become bad tenants, then they pay more than market rent, which offsets all the damage they're doing, or if they're not keeping the unit good. So that's lots of things you can do just to protect yourself. At the end of the day, it's a business. We have to protect ourselves from that downside. We have to be fair and reasonable in this time, but protect the downside. Next question. Where do you think is the best place to invest in Ontario? I live in Whitby and it's very expensive here. Ryan, it depends on a lot of factors. Like, what are you looking for from an investment perspective? I like London. It's a very economically rich and diverse city. It provides a lot greater price point and better cash flow than, say, Toronto. But Toronto, for instance, like the core downtown Toronto, has better overall economic factors, I think, in the economy, more diversity in the economy. It's a stronger economy. And so you get a discounted cash flow because of that. You get a lower cap rate. The price to rent is worse as a result. Interestingly, the appreciation's been worse too. People are investing in Toronto and Vancouver thinking they're gonna get this great appreciation. And a lot of them, they got worse appreciation as a percentage than London. If they just bought like 5 houses in London at 300 a piece, as opposed to one house for 1.5, they would have done better in London from a cash flow and an appreciation perspective. So I like London, but I think there's some opportunities in like places like Oshawa and Durham. Oshawa, I see houses pop up sometimes for wholesale, like 250 grand, 300 grand. They need work, obviously, they're fixer-uppers, but you see some like $250,000 houses in Oshawa, and you're like, geez, that's not bad. I could see the economic fundamentals making sense. You're not in the core of Toronto, but could see it making sense. Next question. I'm finally house hacking and living for free. How do you get approved for another mortgage from here? I make $60,000 a year. Rental income from your house should help you offset your current mortgage, which should, if you go to the right broker, allow you to qualify using your salary again. So show the lease for the unit to the bank. They'll use that rental income or a percentage of it in the inclusion of the calculation for your debt service ratios, and it'll help you qualify. Simple as that. The more properties you buy, actually, the easier it should get to qualify. From a debt servicing perspective, up until maybe 6 or 7 properties, then you're stuck with BMO and TD and Scotia. The rest won't touch anything more than 5. But the rest of them go to, like BMO and Scotia go to 10 properties. So, hi Mike, do you remember the exact video where you went step by step over how you could be financially free if you were to start again from ground zero? John, I don't. It was probably like 15 weeks ago or something on a live stream. I don't, I'm sorry. I wish I categorized these live streams better because I drop some gold nuggets sometimes. But I don't title them, well for refinding later. I don't look at YouTube as a business. Like from ad revenue, my ad revenue's dropped from like 400 a month to like, I'm making like $70 a month now. Like less than, it's gonna go to eventually to zero, right? Because YouTube doesn't pay much of anything for these live streams. I get like nothing other than like super chats basically. It'll sometimes throw in ads and I sometimes get a little bit like a penny. You get like a penny an ad if you watch the whole ad. But it just doesn't make economic sense from YouTube's perspective. But what was the question? It was, step-by-step guide. Yeah, geez, I wish I could spend more time, but it's just not a passion of mine to edit videos. And like, I respect the guys in the space who are friends of mine, who crush it, and they're making bank doing it. But it's just not for me. And money isn't the big driver for me. Like, sure, I could make 200 grand a year on YouTube if I really like started making great videos that were, fun, entertaining, and edited well, and I had good scripts and stuff written like Graham does and Kevin does and all those guys do. But it's just not for me. So I wish I could answer your question. I don't know. A couple weeks ago I did one, maybe even last week I think I did a little Q&A on that, but it wasn't the full breakdown. Can you explain Russian? No, I can't explain Russian. I don't speak Russian. Favorite part of the mentorship. Favorite part, so like of me providing mentorship, I guess it would be, for me, the gain that I get out of it that I really like is long-lasting friendship. I love to build long-term relationships, and that's been the best part of this, is that I have, you know, guys like this beauty over there who's dancing off camera, and he's just a beauty. He's not watching right now. He's just dancing on my deck right now, like just making funny faces at me through the window. That's what I love most about the program, is that I've got this group of people who are like, they're like the inner circle, like the I don't know what you call it, but like, it's like my own little cult, which is like so messed up, and I shouldn't have worded it that way. But we have, on my journey to 100 million or a billion that I'll eventually hit, right? Like, it's just inevitable with compound interest. My wealth will keep growing, and I'll keep doing deals. And like, when you have all that money, what fun is it if there's no one to share it with? So for me, they're my boys, and I like having the boys and the circle of friends that are there to share it and enjoy it with you. What fun is it to go to Florida and stay in a mansion if you don't have your boys with you, to stay in that mansion with you, and with your family too, right? So there's two components. Like, family's really important, but having your boys is really important too. As a dude, like, that's something that matters to me. So that's the part I like most about the mentorship program, is the friendships, it's the bonds that we build that are lifelong. Like, my mentorship program is designed for life. That's the ideal. Someone who comes in to take from me and learn for a couple of years and leave, that's not an ideal mentee to me. That's just a waste of my time. I want long-lasting friendships. That's the goal. At the end of the day, that's what I love most about the program, and that's why I do it. Part of it is just because I love to help people, and like, that's my weakness, I guess, is that I accept people into my life, help them, and then they disappear out of my life again, right? I've done that with lots of people who have helped, who have done tons of free coaching calls with and stuff, and I don't hear from them anymore. I help them, they get a few properties, they grow from it, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's got to be a win-win. It's got to be mutually beneficial, and so even if it's not economically beneficial for me, it's got to be a win in some way. Like, my time invested has to pay off in some way, right? It has to be either in fun or in, I don't know, something. So, good question, Jonas. Hey, Mike, I asked you last week. We did deluxe, got that question done. Virtual tours are a great idea. Totally, I recommend that. Hello from a fellow 32-year-old Fire UWO grad, Sarah May Adams. Sarah, you have to hit me up on Instagram. I'll have to check out your story. Send me an email or send me a text and share with me your story. That's awesome. I love the FIRE movement. I love that people are embracing that, and that, you know, we have this ability to enjoy the way that we live our lives now. We don't have to, you know, grind at a job we don't love. And so I want that for everyone. I truly do. Whatever it is you want to be doing with your life, do that. And if you decide you don't enjoy it anymore, whatever it is you chased, even if it's, you get 10 rental properties, you get there and you're like, I hate this, you can outsource it to a property manager. Or if you don't want to even do that, just sell the properties, take the money and do private lending. Cool. Like, do what you love, right? That's the important part. And that's part of my strategy too, has been selling off some of the headache properties. They're like, when my time was worth $100 an hour, it was worth answering that. But now my time is worth, say, $300 an hour, and it's not worth dealing with those struggles. It sounds too egotistical or too like pompous to say this, but like, eventually you're too rich for those problems. As you build wealth in the FIRE journey, you become too rich to handle those small problems. Same is true about like couponing. In the beginning of your journey, saving $2 at McDonald's in line and waiting 20 minutes in line to get a free burger, that's worth it. But at my stage in the game, it's actually not worth my time. I have to be frugal with my time as I am with my money. And so that's an interesting, shift in mentality that I've had to adopt in my life. So, hey Mike, I'm still in college looking for my next apartment in the fall. For tips on how I might be able to hack or save on rent. I'm in Boston where prices are insanely high. Low beta old birch. Some tips I could recommend would be find a roommate. That's the best way to save on money, is find like a 2-bedroom apartment or something and split on it with someone. Now you got like, even if your rent prices are like $2,000 a month, that's a good way to get your rent cut in half to $1,000 each or something if you're in like a super high cost of living area. Even better is finding like a 5-bedroom house and rent hack. So find a 4 or 5-bedroom house, rent the whole house, and then get 4 roommates, and then cover all the costs. That way you might get your costs way down because you're dividing it over so many rooms. You might make them pay a little bit more. and they'll often offset. If you rent out each room individually, it'll be a lot more than the unit rented out as one unit. Often a house that's 5 bedrooms, you rent it for like $3,000 a month. But if it's separately, it might be $800 a bedroom. So now you can get, do the math. You're ahead. You're actually making money. So there's lots of ways to rent hack. The other thing too is I actually did oh no, it's gone. On my website, I have a little ebook. I actually do have an ebook that I could send out. I should get my website set up again. And it was free for download there. I had a rent hacking and house hacking ebook. It was like 6 pages on how to do it. It was very crude. It was like, narrow your parameters. Like, does location matter? If you can like live further out, you can get a better discount. Like live further from the university and whatever, so forth. Look where no one else is looking. But I still have that on my laptop somewhere, I'm sure. So I could probably bring that back to life. Maybe someone can do that for me. One of the mentees. Someone super chat me $50 to go buy the domain again, and I'll make it live again for people. What opportunities do you see here? In general, there's lots of opportunity. Parents live in West Palm Beach. Oh, this Allie, you were the person who was living in northern Florida there. There's tons of opportunity. I'd have to go look at the market. I haven't spent a lot of time in northern Florida beyond driving through it. So I don't know. I have to spend time there and find out. But wherever there's wherever there's good cap rates, there's opportunity, right? How do you find a long distance contractor? Sorry if this is already covered. William, it wasn't covered. I don't think specifically, but the best way to find a good contractor is through referral. So I'll get a realtor to refer me like 3 or 4 good contacts. I'll have that person, those contractors refer me someone. I'll have other realtors in town. I'll call a bunch and ask them for referrals. But referrals is the best way. From a person to person, get referrals. You don't want to just find someone off the internet. You can, but then you have to test them somehow, right? And call references. You can do it. Like you could just call references and see samples of their work. But the best way, to be honest, is through referral. That's my favorite way to get to find contractors. I got to go faster here. I've been at this a while, and I'm not making very good progress. Sounds like you're about to vacation property house hack near Disney. Definitely. Definitely on the plans list for sure of things I'll be doing. The one, like I'll probably just, if I had like 10 Airbnb rentals down there, I would hop from a week between each one whenever there's just vacancy. Or I would just I'll buy one place that's like a home base, and then I'll rent that on Airbnb, and I'll just hop around where there's vacancies and things like that. I just have fun, to be honest, like trying new experiences and trying out new places, and it's just fun. Just fun. But if I can find a way to support that lifestyle for free by looking for deals and then doing what I already love in Florida, that's a win-win. I lost this message. It was retracted. Nice weather, 80 degrees right now. Beauty. Same with BC. We have a tenant we would never be able to evict here in Vancouver Island. There you go. Yeah, the landlord-tenant board is just not favorable. Jake says, Swoop Airlines. There you go. Swoop's great too. They're fantastic. Spirit too, if you fly to Detroit, it's like a 2-hour drive for me to get to 2.5-hour drive to get to Detroit. They're great as well, economically speaking, for flying. I saw entire communities right outside of Orlando and Davenport specifically designed for Airbnb. Homes have 10 to 14 bedrooms with their own private bathrooms. Definitely. Yeah, I saw a ton of that too. I'd be interested in getting something like that. It would be easy to cash flow when tourism industry restarts in Orlando. Definitely Volley Girl. There's definitely opportunity. There is even opportunity for like the 6-bed, 5-bath for like $250,000. They're getting some really good pricing opportunities down there, especially some foreclosure stuff where investors maybe from UK or Canada own the property, can't travel there. They're from the UK or whatever, and there's a ban on travel, and they're like, geez, they're like, oh, I can't travel to Orlando, I'm done. And they're just selling the property off, or they just default on their mortgage and let the bank sell it off. So we're seeing a lot of that too, and that's opportunity. I think the industry will recover, and now's the time to be buying. Buy when everyone else is selling. Buy when everyone else is unsure. By the way, I live in Arizona currently. I have multiple rental properties here that I own, and I'm no way as big as you, but I am an electrical engineer by trade and got my real estate license in 2019. Just an FYI, because Arizona came up in a question. So D, how to? You have to hit me up on Instagram at Mike Rosehart. Send me a message, because I'll be coming down to Arizona probably in the next 6 months to a year for sure. Oh, my daughter wants to do bath time and bedtime. I gotta go. I gotta finish this up real quick. Any cities from Phoenix? I'll have to share with that another time. Former landlords. Name. Okay. Okay. All right, I gotta wrap it up, guys. It's bedtime. Thanks everyone so much for all the questions. If I missed your question, which looks like I might have missed a few questions here, just shoot me a message and I will jump on and in the comments respond to those and give you guys all the answers that you're looking for. So looks like I missed a few, but
That's Anissa's.
William, no worries.
Come on.
I don't expect it. You've already given enough. Appreciate it.
Mine.
No, that's
What I'll do is maybe I'll sell an ebook or something to pay for it. So anyway, thank you everyone so much for joining in on the chat tonight and for watching the live stream. I'll see you guys all next week on the Wise Wealth Show, or the Mike Rosehart Show now, as I call it. Almost 2 years now. Every single Wednesday I've gone live, whether I'm on vacation or wherever I am. And so 60 hours a week or 60 hours a year I dedicate to this, and a little bit more with the question and answer and stuff. So happy to do it. Happy to help people. And thank you all so much for watching. The secret to a wealthy you is 3 levers: spend less, earn more, and maximize returns. And if I missed your question, copy and paste it, retype it in the comments after I publish this video in a second here when I end it, then I can respond to it. And the best part of doing that, instead of, a lot of people take the question and they send it to me privately. The problem with that is I spend a long time writing the answer out and then no one else gets the enjoyment of seeing the answer. And then I answer the same question 3 times. Whereas if you put it in the comments, then I can answer it and people can go and view it and they can see the response. So please, please do that. Thank you guys.